Hello everybody, my name is Cayla McDonald and I am presenting on the Circus Fire, a true story of an American tragedy by Stewart. This book was very personal and tragic for me because I'm actually a circus performer. And performing under multiple big tops, this was quite a scary read for me. I performed with the FSU Flying High Circus for 4 years as an undergrad, and I continue to perform and teach in South Florida as well as around the country. Even further, one of my good friends, Alex Walenda, is part of the famous Walenda family that were not only mentioned quite often in this book, but were performing when the fire started. So, without further ado, here we go. So a bit of background. The circus has had a history of fires, not only Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, but many other circuses for many years. But when Ringling Brothers arrived in Hartford, which is the scene of the fire, no arrangements were made with the Hartford Fire Department at all, and the fire department did not come out to inspect. The fire took place in Hartford on July 6, 1944. The fire began on a sidewall and spread quickly upward to the big top. In the rings at the time, the animal acts, lions in one ring and panthers in the other, were performing, as well as the famous Walenda family on the high wire in the center ring. The picture you see here is of their famed three-tiered pyramid, and this is the reported trick that they were performing when the fire broke out. So the first issues, firstly, 2 of the 4 main exits were blocked by the animal chutes. Next, there was a widespread attitude of "don't worry, they'll put it out." And even further, the announcer stated to please keep your seats, we know about the fire and we will take care of this. So once the audience realized that they had wasted precious time believing the fire would be put out, eventually commotion and a frenzy ensued. And once this started, those who hesitated at the bottom of the stands were trampled or pushed or shoved. And even though there was commotion, some still chose to stay because they thought the fire would be put out. May Kovar, one of the animal trainers with the Panthers, was dubbed a hero for her actions. She sent her cats out first, hurrying them to safety through the chutes, while above and around the chutes people were scrambling and clambering to get over and out. She got her cats out safely, left her cage in the middle of the ring, even though she could have crawled through the chute to safety earlier on, and she helped people to get over the chutes and out to safety themselves. She then escaped the tent and stood guard over her panthers, dousing them with water from a hose and their cages, which were wooden, to keep them safe from the flames. The Walendas all escaped safely, shimmying down the poles of their rigging, making their way to the chutes, easily scaling them and then escaping the tent by walking across the chutes. Famous clown Emmett Kelly was also there for the fire and helped during the fire. He helped people escape with his painted-on frown. Throughout the fire, the band played Stars and Stripes Forever, the universal cue to circus performers that something is very wrong. Initially, the band began to play the song to warn the Walendas, who were high up on their tightrope in their three-tiered pyramid, as well as any other performers performing or backstage who may not have known what was wrong yet. The band continued to play until the ceiling began to collapse around them, when they then bailed out of the tent and continued playing outside to calm survivors. Audience members were frenzied, trying to escape the fire. People were jumping from the top of the stand, sometimes landing on other injured jumpers below. People were trampled, shoved, and pushed out of the way, especially trying to scale the animal chutes. Some people tried to slide down the poles and ropes, sometimes burning their hands and falling to the ground. People slashed at the tent with pocket knives, making slits to slither through. Here's a photo of the aftermath, and you can see the animal chutes, the metal that's in this picture, and also the tent poles that collapsed when the tent collapsed. Notice the pile of shoes sadly next to the animal chutes. The response was quick and everyone was called: on and off-duty police, firemen, ambulances, any trucks fitted with stretcher racks. At that time, delivery trucks were fitted with stretcher racks, mainly for wartime, but it very much helped in this case. And Onan claims that the state and city were fully prepared for a disaster of this magnitude. Clearly it was the circus that was not prepared at all for such a disaster. The governor quickly contacted state police and the Connecticut State Guard. All in all, 8 hospitals were involved: the Red Cross, state police, state war council, the army, and volunteers, all including state, nonprofit, and even private organizations. Uh, at that time, rescuers also arrived on scene to clean up the bodies, and sometimes they found bodies cut in half by falling poles. And bodies were piled 7 to 8 high at the animal chutes. At that time, medical examiners, priests, and state attorneys, prosecutors were called to the scene. The city had planned and practiced drills, mostly for war, but according to Anand, the emergency plan worked for this type of situation as well. The hospitals had been given a few minutes warning, so they were prepared as much as they could be for the victims to arrive. And the hospitals, after Pearl Harbor, had developed emergency plans for civilian disasters, and the previous fall they had run a drill that helped very much so in this situation because everyone knew where they should have been and what they should be doing, and it was an effective drill. There were many issues on the circus's part. First, the circus's water trucks were not where they should have been. Nan says that way off in the woods at the show's water trucks, Deacon Blanchfield was supposed to make sure they were on hand during the performance with their engines turning, but somehow he'd forgotten. Ushers also packed in more chairs, which ended up hanging out into the aisles in order to gain more money. This was a regular practice, and from photos of that day, at least some ushers did that. Also, the canvas big top was coated with a mixture of paraffin watered down with gasoline. This was done to protect from rainfall, but in effect, this made it completely flammable, and this mixture eventually rained down on people like napalm, burning them until the gasoline was gone. Also, there were no fire extinguishers in the tent, though there were supposed to be. They were supposed to be under the stands, but they were not placed there that night. While the fire was still small, 4 circus employees attempted to quell the fire with only 4 buckets of water. Similarly, there were no smoking signs displayed in Hartford, even though there had been signs posted in other cities that season. And lastly, sisal hemp, which is reported to be as combustible as dry kindling, was used to lace the tent together, and this probably just made the fire even worse. There were a number of circus employees arrested for involuntary manslaughter, including James Haley, the acting head of circus, George Smith, the general manager, Leonard Aylesworth, the canvas boss who was responsible for coating the tent in paraffin, Whitey Versteeg, the light gang boss responsible for the lack of fire extinguishers in the tent, and Deacon Blanchfield, the superintendent of trucks, responsible for the lack of water trucks at the performance. Also, a legal issue, the circus ended up paying over $5 million in wrongful death suits or injury suits, the most expensive one being $100,000. Though the circus did a lot wrong, the final blame was placed on Robert Dale Segui, who admitted to setting the fire in 1950. He claimed he had a vision of an Indian on a flaming horse that told him to set the circus fire, among others. He would have been 14 at that time, and he was working for the circus. On top of the circus fire that killed 167, he also admitted to 4 murders and many other fires, neither of which were related to the circus fire. He was convicted and went to jail. The numbers, approximately 8,700 spectators were inside the tent. 167 of them died. Most were children, over 2/3 of them were children, and most were burned to death. Some were trampled, sometimes a combination of both. None of them died from smoke asphyxiation, and not all of the victims have been identified. Some were burned beyond recognition to the point where they could not tell if they were male or female. And just in case you're wondering, none of the performers died and none of the animals died. I'd like to say that the circus learned its lesson, and hopefully it did. The circus retreated to their home in Sarasota, vowing to perform without a tent until they could effectively fireproof their big top tent. They had claimed they could not obtain the fireproofing materials because of the war, and the uh, military had commandeered all of the waterproofing materials. So they went on without a tent, utilizing only one small fireproof tent for their sideshow. The lessons we learned in emergency management were probably greater than those the circus learned. First, we see that it is so important not only for states and cities to have disaster plans, but also for individual companies um, to not only have plans and procedures, but to practice and implement them. Because though the state and city had plans that helped tremendously, the Ringling plan would have been key. Also, we learned that mitigation is so important. The fire could and should have been extinguished sooner with the extinguishers, the water trucks, or other such measures that should have been in place. Further, the audience should have been evacuated sooner with clear direction from the staff. We also learned that planning is extremely important. If the circus had addressed their largest hazard, fire, then they may have been able to properly plan for such an event with procedures and equipment in place to deal with one. The staff should have been trained or at least briefed on the procedures during the fire, and exits, including more of them, should have been clearly marked. Most notably, the tent never should have been um, waterproofed instead of fireproofed, and the tent should have been addressed in regards to fire. As far as how good of a job Onan did, I think he did a great job of portraying not only the disaster here, but the circus and its details and nuances. He uses details, but not to the point of the story getting boring. He also uses drama, but not to the point of the book being overdramatic. He follows many of the victims, survivors, and performers, and their stories end up being intertwined in his book in a way that keeps you sadly, tragically intrigued. On my analysis, according to my reading of other sources and other stories, other accounts, Onan actually found the true facts, at some points noting where sensationalized stories came about, where they came from, and providing the true account. He provides factual, sad information in a way that makes you want to keep reading, and the book is a good one, not only for circus folk, but for anyone intrigued by mysteries and tragedies. And finally, here are my references. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Bye.